Harp here with lesson 2 on how to breathe when playing the harmonica. Okay, so the aim of this lesson, as ever, is to share with you some thoughts that I have on the subject of breathing when you're playing the harmonica. This precedes a lesson which gets into the admittedly very important point of how to get a single note on the harmonica. This is a general one about breathing, whether you're playing one note, two notes, three notes, whatever at the same time. One of the magical things amongst all the magical things about the harmonica is that it's unique amongst wind instruments in that you not only get a note when you blow into it, but you get a note or notes when you breathe in as well. Many of the people who do play the diatonic harmonica are doing so in a slightly bluesy style. Moreover, most people who are playing in a bluesy style tend to use what we call second position. What that means is that you're kind of basing everything around the chord that you get when you inhale. So that was the bottom three holes of the harp, yeah? Okay, so that's your home chord. The result of that is that you end up inhaling more than you do exhaling. I once did this thing where I tried to work out the proportions of breathing out versus breathing in that I did on a slightly stereotypical bit of blues harmonica soloing, and I found that I was breathing in about 70% of the time and breathing out about 30% of the time. Lots of other instruments, including singing, of course, spend a huge amount of time, quite rightly, talking about the control of breathing going out, and then they sort of say, take a breath here. It's assumed that you go. They don't talk a huge amount about the inhaling bit, whereas with the harmonica, that's how we might get a really nice, long, soulful note. You know, that was all breathing in, so we need to talk about that. We need to talk about breathing in. One thing to say just about posture, I'm very far from being an expert on singing, but such courses and teaching that I have experienced on singing, quite often a sort of head position is being advised where the chin is kind of in a little bit, and people talk about, especially with high notes, that the note should come through the top of the head and things like that. Sorry about that, but you have a bit more control if your chin's down a little bit when you're obviously breathing out, so more of it might go through your vocal cords. That isn't the case with breathing in. I don't know if any of you ever watched the German film Das Boot, which was about the experiences of a U-boat crew in the Second World War. And there was one scene I can remember, which is that they'd been on the bottom of the seabed for ages, having dived, and they were getting low on oxygen and all the rest of it. And finally they managed to get to the surface, and they opened the hatch, and all the crew members were at the bottom of the conning tower. And as the hatch opened and they finally got their fresh air, what did they all look like? They weren't looking like this, going, because they wanted to breathe in. That's what they wanted. They wanted this oxygen, and they were all like this. They were. If you feel what it feels like to breathe in, if you've got if your head is down a bit, you can breathe in much more unimpeded than you can if you're kind of like this. It feels like there's some obstruction in the way. I'm just sort of throwing that in there because often when you see a blues harmonica player really going for it from side on, if you were someone who thought a lot about posture, you might say they've got really bad posture because they're quite often like this. They're looking like that. It looks like their head's crooked forwards. But very often that is the right place to be in terms of an unimpeded path of air coming into your lungs. Whether you're breathing in or you're breathing out, the simplistic way this is working is you've got a pair of lungs. If you want to breathe in, the lungs have to increase in size. That causes a pressure, a vacuum. It means the air wants to come in. And then when they decrease in size, they're squeezing air out and it's going back the other way. So to breathe in, you are increasing the volume of your lungs. There's actually a few ways you can do this. One way that you can do that is that you can use the muscles linking the ribs in your rib cage to cause your rib cage to open up a little bit, so it's effectively like the rib cage is going like that and it's causing the lungs to increase. If you want a sense of what that feels like, if you can imagine doing a very melodramatic sigh, you go, did you see what was going on there? It was all up here, it was all in my chest, it was all what we call thoracic breathing. So all of the movement was in the rib cage. It was causing the ribs to go up, which incidentally makes your shoulders go up a little bit, is a way of breathing. It's important. We need it to survive. It's not necessarily the best way of breathing, because another way that you can cause the volume of your lungs to increase is not by making them go outwards and upwards, but to make them go bigger downwards. And to do that, it's not so much what's going on up here in the chest, it's what's going on down here in the abdomen, and it's more abdominal breathing. The all-important muscle is the diaphragm. So if you haven't come across that, you've got two lungs shaped sort of like this, but they don't have a flat bottom to them. Each lung has a kind of slanted bottom like that. So if you can imagine, that's a lung sort of shaped like that. Okay, it's got a slanted bottom, and then the one on the right, my right, is looking like that. So underneath all of them then is this curved muscle called the diaphragm. When you flex your diaphragm, it causes that diaphragm to contract. You're contracting it and it's going like that, yeah? So it's flattening. And of course what that's doing is it's heaving down the lungs and getting loads more volume into them. Actually more volume than you could have got by doing the earlier thing that I described with the ribs. Sitting underneath your diaphragm, you've got a whole bunch of organs and all the rest of it in your abdomen, and round the side of your abdomen you have your abdominal wall. Yet more muscles going on. And having breathed in, if your abdominal wall now flexes a bit, so it's going squeezing like a tube of toothpaste, and at the same time you relax that diaphragm, it reduces the volume of your lungs, and then the air can go back out the way it came. The key thing about this then, abdominal breathing or diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing, is that you have access to a much greater volume of air that way. Okay, now if you haven't got into this before, a good place to start is just to develop awareness of it. And an exercise that you can do is just grunting. It's all about what's going on down here. So if you try and just do a grunt like an ape, you want to do a grunt that you can feel down here. And that's what we're trying to access, is that that feel. Yeah, we will get much more power that way, and we will get much more control and much more expression. That's what we're trying to access, that kind of motor down there, the abdominal breathing. A good way of developing awareness with relation to the harmonica is to try playing a little bit of train style blues. This has got the beautiful quality to it that it's a bluesy thing, that is to say it's in second position, yes. On a C harmonica it's the bottom, the chord that you get from the bottom three notes when you breathe in, which is actually a chord of G, so we're in the key of G. So it kind of sounds bluesy, but you don't even need to know how to just play one note. Still less do you need to know how to do bending. You don't need any of that for this, but it sounds kind of cool. There's lots of variations to how this works out. Very simple version is that you're putting your lips in a nice, relaxed, comfortable way right down at the bottom end of the harp, so that you cover the three holes, 1, 2, 3, okay? And the first thing that you do is you're breathing in. But you're not just going like that. You need to go tucker, or people sometimes call it tucker, but you don't say as you're doing it. And of course you're breathing in, so you're going so just try that together. You go tucker in, and then stay where you are, but on the way out you go hooker. So it's tucker, hooker, tucker, hooker. And the reason this is called train is that this vaguely impersonates the sound of an old style steam train going chugga 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 chugga. That's kind of all there is to it, really. There's variations on it. You could go tur hooker tucker hooker tur. Of course you can do loads of lovely stuff with your hands that we talked about in the last lesson. Yeah, so you can go. And that last thing that you just heard me doing is, of course, accelerate. The train starts slowly. Etc, etc. Another thing that you can do is you can start with a blow. You can go huh on the out, and then you can do ka-tuka on the in. And so on and so forth. What a load of fun. And you probably heard for yourself that I was moving it a little bit, yeah? So yes, I'll start off with 3s. I'm occasionally going up to 4. I'm occasionally going down to 2. It's not rocket science. Play around with it. It's one of those things where it kind of sounds good and it doesn't need a huge amount of technique. Even if that isn't part of your repertoire, I would say it should be part of your practice routine. And I would say when to play it is right at the beginning of your practice routine. If you do train stuff for 5 minutes, you will feel a little bit jelly-like, if you're not used to it, down in your abdomen, because you've got those muscles working that maybe don't do so much work normally. If I'm sitting in the audience and I'm anticipating being asked up onto the stage, sometimes I just do it silently. And I go... Another thing that you can do is you can just try playing sort of single notes and try and get that nice sound, a nice even sound. That was all breathing in, that particular one. It's not all about doing the stuff at a million miles an hour on the harmonica, yeah? If you look at how people appreciate the sound of the harmonica, they're very often emotionally going in on the tone. So pay attention to stuff like tone, pay attention to stuff like evenness, and what a single note sounds like. Just to reiterate the points then, the first thing is we're both breathing in and breathing out. If anything, the breathing in is what we're going to be doing more of than the breathing out, so we need to pay attention to that. Think about breathing from the belly, using your diaphragm, just get aware of it. Wake up your diaphragm, with or without a harmonica, but preferably with a harmonica, and I can't think of a better way of doing that than just playing a bit of train blues, and then try to concentrate on getting a nice even amount of breath. Those are just my thoughts on breathing. I hope that's been helpful to you, and I'll see you soon when we'll be talking about some very simple tunes that you can do on the harmonica. So until that time comes, I'll say goodbye for now, and keep on harping.